Alright, welcome back. So in today's video, we are going to go over some of the processes we've talked about in previous videos, and then we are going to go through and we're going to learn a couple more useful things to do with GitHub. So we have VS Code, and let's say we want to do more stuff with GitHub. This is just a simple repo I made, GitHub practice. Feel free to go to the link, clone it, copy it, make pushes, commits, whatever. Please feel free. This is all it's used for, just for simple purposes. So we'll go to the repo that we want. We'll click on code, SSH. Remember, if you've set up the SSH key like we did in the previous video, then you can use this option. Otherwise, do it with the HTTPS. But go to clone SSH. We're going to copy that to the clipboard, and then go ahead and go back to VS Code. So here, again, terminal, new terminal, but we don't want to do anything in PowerShell, so we're going to choose git bash instead. Go ahead and delete the PowerShell terminal. We can say git version if you want to, if you're concerned whether or not it's still installed, whatever, but it should be. And then we will git clone and paste in our original key that we copied to clipboard. I don't think that tilde should be at the end. I don't know why it put it there. Let me... Okay, so it... well, maybe it needs to be. Yeah, no, I don't know why it's putting that tilde there. Okay, well, if it puts a little tilde at the end of yours, just know that probably shouldn't be there. So if you delete it, it should be fine. So it looks like we cloned it. Everything's good. It says done. No errors. We're good to go. So we can file, open folder, and go to... oh boy, I already forgot what I called it. GitHub practice. There it is. GitHub practice. I'm going to select that folder. And here we are. It's got a simple README, which is what we're going to edit today. So let's just make some simple changes. We'll add that and say, we'll just add in, this is the first push by Eddie Mannon. Got a little smiley, well, I don't know if the smiley face will cause any issues or not. Okay, so there we go. Lovely. And now if we save it, it is saved to our local version. However, it is not saved in the cloud. It's not saved up in Git. So how do we get it there? Well, again, there are multiple different ways you can do stuff with Git. This is the version I learned. It'll work across all versions, all code compilers, whatnot, and it's always going to be the same, which is why I prefer it. So go back to terminal, new terminal. Don't want PowerShell. We want git bash. Delete it if you want. Okay. So it shows that we're at the computer, whatever, home directory, and we are in the GitHub practice folder, which is where we want to be, because that's where we're editing our code. So we're in the right folder. For example, if we did a cd, it would take us back up to the head directory, but not in any folders. So now we're not, so now this isn't in GitHub practice, and it won't work correctly. So again, you don't need to do that. That's just for example. So then we will cd back in, and now we're back in the repo we want to be in, which is our main repository. So we made changes. We want to push them up to GitHub. What's the best way to do that? Well, first we'll need to type in git add and then a period. So what this does is it goes through and it takes all the files you've made changes to, and it adds them to kind of a cache. So it kind of adds them to a cache or a temporary folder saying, hey, these are all the files that I want to push changes with. And we'll hit enter. It shouldn't give you any kind of output, but they should be in there now. So now we will say that we want to do a git commit, and then we will say -m, which means we want to add a message to our commit. Not parentheses, double quotes, and then type in whatever you want the message to say on GitHub. So we'll say, this is our first push to the repo. With these commit messages, you want to make them ideally short, sweet, and to the point. You want them to be very detailed, so that way if you ever need to pull code from an earlier time, your messages will show you exactly what pushes changed which things. So it's good to push often and make sure they're detailed commit messages. So I'm git commit, add a message, this is the message I want to add. In theory, I think you could do it without the message, but it's much better if you just add a message, give a brief description. So then we'll hit enter, and you should say we only one file changed because the README is all we changed. 3 insertions because we inserted something. We inserted the exclamation point, we inserted the extra line, and then we inserted another line. 1 deletion. I'm not 100% sure what the deletion is. That might be from when I added in the smiley face and then got rid of the smiley face. Anyway, so we've added the files we want to commit. We've made the commit. We've made all the files. We've gathered them up. They're ready to be sent up to GitHub. And now all we do is we git push. So this will push the changes we made up to GitHub. Again, this is assuming that you have access to the repository, that you have all the proper rights, push privileges, SSH keys, blah, blah, blah. But assuming you've done everything correctly and got everything set up correctly up until this point, we should be able to say git push. It'll say it's enumerating some stuff, it's writing some stuff, a bunch of stuff that you don't care about. All you want to care about is that it sent it to the repo, sent it to main, and that there's no error message. That's the biggest thing. If there's an error message, that could mean many things, but no error message, that's always good. So we know it's up there because we just pushed it up there, but let's say we want to double check. So we'll go back to GitHub, and it looks like there's nothing there. Well, refresh the page. There it is. It says most recent, says the last person to make a push. This is our first push to the repo. This was our first push to the repo. That's the message that we added into the commit. It'll put the most recent one up here at the top. It says the most recent commit was made 1 minute ago. There's been 2 total commits. If there was multiple files here, it would say like this file up here was made 8 weeks ago, but this one was made 1 minute ago. And then it shows it right there. Yeah. Okay, so now let's do it the other direction. Let's make a really simple change here. This is a repo anyone can practice pushing to. I hope. Okay, so then we can commit the changes here on GitHub. Okay, so we made the change. Refresh. Oh, sorry. Go back to the main page, refresh everything, and now it says anyone can practice pushing to, I hope. Okay, but now we're running into a similar issue as before. That's not here. So how do we get the changes from GitHub to our VS Code? Well, luckily that is very easy. If you're ever doing GitHub stuff and you're working on a team, or you're working with partners, what have you, this is what you always want to do before you start writing your own code, just to make sure that you're not redoing something someone has already done. So generally, if you're working on a public repo, the first thing you want to do is a git, and instead of a push, we'll do a git pull, and this pull will go up to GitHub and it will pull the changes, whatever changes anyone has made, down and auto update it up here in VS Code. So now it says this repo is one that anyone can practice pushing to, and there's our I hope that we added. So wonderful, the change was up there, we pulled it, now we have it. And of course you can do as many git pulls as you want. If there's no change, it'll just let you know, hey, we're already up to date, we're good to go. And of course you can do as many pushes as you want. Sometimes if you have multiple people working on, say, the same file at the same time, you can sometimes run into issues with, oh, you tried to push, but your partner made a push and you didn't pull that first, and now GitHub doesn't know which changes you want to keep. Uh, it can get a little messy sometimes, but all in all, this is a fantastic utility. So yeah, that was a little bit more complex, I guess, a little more interesting ways to use GitHub. Uh, of course, there's a ton of things you can do with Git. For example, you can cut branches. You can have a main branch, a testing branch, a bug fix branch. You can cut branch, cut branch, cut branch, and then combine them all the way up to the main. Uh, you can go really in depth, but this, for the average user, this is about all you're ever gonna need. So yeah, thanks.